Hey guys, Saltchrome here. So today Bungie released the patch notes. So in the patch notes, Bungie explains how they're going to nerf the Sunbreaker Titan and buff the Striker and the Defender Titan. As you guys can see on my channel, I main a Titan and I was not happy at all when I was reading the patch notes. I just want you guys to know that I am not biased and I want balance in this game. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the positives about these patch notes. So the Titan is getting a buff to its melee range. So our current melee range is 4 meters and the buffed melee range will be 4.5 meters. So a 0.5 meters buff, which is a step in the right direction, I think. Because the Titans were always advertised as the melee class and the close quarter class. But in reality that was not the case, not at all. The Warlocks and the Hunters, especially the Warlocks, were dominating the Titans in close quarters. So moving on, the Striker subclass is getting a big buff. Outside of our grenades, the subclass was not overwhelming, not at all. So it needed a well-deserved buff. So in the Striker subclass they are buffing the melee abilities of the Titans and they are buffing most of the passive perks, including Juggernaut. For the guys who don't know what the Juggernaut perk does for a Striker, so when you sprint with your Titan you will generate a shield in front of you. The perk was pretty weak, to be quite honest, because the shield was not so strong. You could take it out with a couple of bullets. And when you jump, you cancel the shield. So they're going to buff the strength of the shield, and when you jump, it doesn't cancel the shield anymore. So that's a positive thing. They really wanted the Striker Titan to play its intended role, which is being a close quarters subclass. Moving on to the Defender Titan. This one is actually quite disappointing. The only buff that the Defender subclass is receiving is when you activate your Ward of Down, your grenade and your melee ability will recharge instantly. And that's it. If you wanna read the patch notes in detail, I will link them in the description below. I don't wanna break down all the info for the Striker Titans because in this video I want to focus on the Sunbreaker Titan. So, about the Sunbreaker Titan. As you guys know, I main a Titan and the nerf on this subclass, it really made me sad. They nerfed the subclass in a way that it affects PvE even more than PvP. If the nerf was only for PvP, then I wouldn't have much problems with it. But yeah, so let's get into it. So on the Sunstrike, they are decreasing the damage over time from 6.5 seconds to 5.5 seconds, which is understandable, not complaining. Moving on. So they are decreasing the damage resistance when in Hammer of Soul Super by 9.09%. Again, totally understandable because they were a pain in the ass to kill, to be quite honest. The travel speed of the hammers is decreased by 1.32%. This is a very small amount, so not a big deal. Such a small amount of percent is not gonna make a difference in my opinion, so yeah. The perk Forge Master is being nerfed, which means that they are decreasing the blast radius of the hammers by 20%. Not gonna make a lot of difference in PvP, to be quite honest, but is going to affect the DPS of the Sunbreaker Titan in PvE. And this is why I am pissed at Bungie. They cannot separate the PvP and PvE. When something is OP in PvP, that doesn't mean that the same thing is OP in PvE. PvP and PvE are two different worlds. You cannot compare them. The same thing happened with the Vex Mythoclast, it happened with the auto rifle nerfs, it happened with the hand cannon nerfs. Those things were a bit too powerful in PvP, so what did Bungie do? They nerfed them into the ground. So what is the result? Those guns are not usable in PvP, but not only that, they are also not usable in PvE. And this is, I think, the main problem of Destiny. That PvE and PvP depend on each other. And that should not be the case. Because like I said before, those are two different worlds. Something that is powerful in PvP doesn't mean that it's also powerful in PvE. Let me give you a good example. The Fatebringer. It was and still is one of the, if not the best primaries in Destiny. That gun was a very powerful gun in PvE. But when you bring the Fatebringer in the PvP world, it becomes an average hand cannon. It was not strong, it was also not weak, but it was just average. Another example, the Thorn and the Last Word were the two best primaries to use in PvP before the nerf. But in PvE, these guns, especially the Last Word, were just weak. So because of PvP, you nerf an already weak gun in PvE. This should stop. They need to separate PvP and PvE, because PvE is innocent. Moving on. Flameseeker, which enables your hammers to track your enemies, is getting turned down by 25%. The tracking on Flameseeker was pathetic to begin with. Why in hell would you nerf that perk? It just alters its flight path when it's close to the enemy. Your hammers don't become tracking rockets or something. You still need to aim your hammers, and the missing chance is still very high, even when that perk is equipped. Also, no one complained about that perk. I am checking the Destiny forums quite frequently, and that was definitely not considered overpowered by the community, not at all. In fact, people were complaining that the perk was underperforming. So why Bungie decided to nerf this perk is beyond me. Anyways, the Flameseeker perk doesn't give the 1+ agility and the recovery anymore. So instead of that, Fleetfire will give you 1+ agility and Firekeeper will give you 1+ recovery. Not a big deal. And the last but the biggest nerf to the Sunbreaker is adding the 3 seconds cooldown to Cauterize. So if you don't know what Cauterize does, it regenerates your health when you get a kill with your ability, meaning your super, your grenades and your melee ability. Now this means that you can't just go full Rambo in your Hammer of Soul super, and with that I mean just going in a room, killing everyone without even having a scratch. I totally agree that this perk was indeed strong and it needed a slight nerf. They could have nerfed the perk by just adding the cooldown only to the super kills, because the perk Cauterize plays a big role on the Sunbreaker's neutral game. So nerfing this perk is making the already weak neutral game of the Titan even weaker. And again, PvE is affected. In PvP, killing 5 or more people with your hammer without even having a scratch is unacceptable. I get this. But doing the same thing in PvE doesn't hurt anyone. If Bungie is going to nerf something, do it PvP only, please. I don't want to miss something that I enjoyed in PvE because of PvP. So in my opinion, these nerfs are fair in PvP, but not fair at all in PvE. Don't get me wrong, the Hammer of Soul is still going to rock in PvP. It's still going to be one of the best supers in PvP to use. But this nerf is going to change the way I play with my Sunbreaker in PvE, which is sad. So what do you guys think of the patch notes? Please let me know in the comment section below. And if you like Destiny content, then feel free to subscribe to my channel, because there is plenty of them coming. And thanks for watching the video and listening to my opinion. And I'll see you guys on my next video.